Thank you, Mr. President. I also rise today to offer my no vote explanation on Senate Bills 584, 585, and 586. In my time here in Lansing, we have voted on quite a few things that have made me ask myself, what are we doing here and why are we doing it? And today is one of those days, Mr. President. And so before I jump into this, I want to be very clear about where I stand on a few things. First, I'm not anti-gun. Second, I'm not anti-Second Amendment. I believe that Michigan has a rich tradition of hunting that we need to protect and maintain. I believe that Michiganders have a right to protect themselves from danger and to protect their property. But, Mr. President, I also believe in common sense. We are preparing to vote on a package of bills that would allow Michiganders to conceal carry weapons in schools, in daycare centers, and much to the chagrin of even the most avid gun enthusiast in my district, we are voting on a bill that would allow Michiganders to conceal carry at the local bar. But if that's what my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are intent on doing, I'll try to meet you halfway. If you want folks to be able to carry a pistol into a preschool, can't we at least have a conversation about how we can ensure that only properly trained individuals do so? And if you want folks to be able to carry a Beretta into the bar, can't we at least have a conversation about how we can ensure that only properly trained individuals do so? Telling someone that all they have to do to be qualified is fire an additional 94 rounds is nowhere near the level of training that is needed. You can fire off 94 rounds in just a matter of minutes. And you can fire 94 rounds off in just a matter of seconds if you have a bump stock. Now, it's no secret in this chamber that I'm incredibly proud of my time spent serving our country as a United States Marine and a member of 2 Scout Sniper platoons. I talk about it all the time. And whether it was at boot camp or time spent at the range, time spent training with my brothers, you name it, weapons safety and weapons handling was at the forefront of absolutely everything that we did. We took in-depth courses to learn the ins and outs of our M4 carbines, our M9 Berettas, the M40A3, the Mark 11, the Mark 12, but this bill does not require anywhere near that level of training. We spent time learning how to aim and to shoot properly, how to aim small so that you miss small, so that rounds don't accidentally hit innocent civilians. But this bill doesn't require that level of training either. We spent day after day after day at the rifle range, throwing lead downrange, perfecting our shooting positions, manipulating our techniques, and refining our craft. But this bill does not require that level of training either. We then conducted live shooting situations. We were shot with simulation rounds. We were challenged on our fine motor skills, almost all of which are lost when you are in a combat situation, because shooting at a paper target in a controlled environment is vastly different than reacting in a real emergency. And of course, this bill does not require that level of training either. We require extensive training for our military to increase safety and security. We require extensive training for our law enforcement officials to increase safety and security. But if somebody wants to turn our bars into a Wild West saloon, or if somebody wants to turn our classrooms into yet another memorial to the lives of children lost to gun violence, it would appear that this legislature wants you to have it. And if I learned anything throughout my training, it is that these weapons have absolutely no place around children. And they have absolutely no place around alcohol. But once more, here we are, acting not in the best interest of our local communities, but instead we are dictating to them what they can and cannot do. And so that brings me to my second point, Mr. President, and that is a loss of local control. When I first came to Lansing, I used to hear many of my friends on the other side of the aisle drone on and on about the importance of local control. The closer the decisions are being made to the people it affects, the better, they would say. We need to let these decisions occur within the local units of government that represent our communities. But instead, with this legislation, Mr. President, we are telling our local school districts that they have no say. And worse still, we are telling our parents that they have no control over the safety and security of their children. Imagine that for 1 second. The party of local control, the party of less government, the party of individual freedoms, the party of liberty, telling Michigan parents that they know better than they do. It is frustrating to sometimes have to remind Republicans what it is they stand for. Under this bill, under no circumstance will parents, community leaders, or school districts be able to come together and say that they don't want guns in their schools. So please, just spare me the local control argument from here on out. And finally, Mr. President, I want to touch on just how terribly tone-deaf this legislation is. We have been lectured incessantly about how the days and weeks following a tragedy such as Columbine or Newtown or Las Vegas, well, these are just not the time to discuss our gun laws. Yet here we are, just days after yet another church shooting. A word that I still can't even fathom exists in our lexicon, a church shooting. And we are getting ready to pass legislation regarding guns. So let's be clear and let's be honest that in this chamber we do not give a damn about the timing of these events because we have become numb to them entirely. We pretend like we have absolutely no other choice than to accept a United States of America that is more violent, more homicidal, and more helpless than the rest of the civilized world. Our lone response out of this esteemed body is to increase the prevalence of guns in our society, and in our schools, and in our daycares, and in our hospitals, and in our bars. We could be beefing up background checks. We could be looking at increasing cooling off periods for purchasing guns. We could even be increasing the money that we spend on mental health care or allowing local police better access to mental health records to try and prevent these tragedies. But the truth of the matter is, Mr. President, we are not here to protect our communities today. We are here to tell them that they must live with gun violence because we are too weak to stand up and say that enough is enough. Doing the right thing would make too much sense. But as I've already pointed out, we are not here to make sense today. I thank you, and I ask that my remarks be printed in the Journal.